My stepsister pointed at me in front of 80 guests and laughed. "She's just a nurse," she said. The table chuckled. Someone muttered, "Oh, that's nice." A few people looked away politely. I smiled, picked up my water glass, said nothing, and then the groom's father slowly put down his fork. He looked at me the way people look when a face belongs to a memory they cannot quite place. Slowly, carefully, like something important was trying to come back. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from. My name is Emily. I am 34. I have been a nurse for 11 years. Not because it was the only option, because it was the only thing I wanted to do. My mother remarried when I was 9. Lily came with the marriage. Same house, different worlds. Lily had tutors, vacations, a credit card at 16. I had a part-time job at a grocery store and a scholarship I rewrote 4 times before it was accepted. I never resented her. Truly. I just understood early that we were measuring life by different rulers. Lily measured by appearances, labels, the kind of success you could photograph. I measured by something else. 11 years of night shifts, difficult families, impossible situations, patients who arrived broken and left breathing. That was enough for me. It was never enough for Lily. She had made that clear my entire life. Tonight was no different. The Grand Rosewood Hall was exactly the kind of place Lily would choose. Crystal chandeliers, white orchids on every table, waiters in black jackets moving through the room like they had rehearsed it. 80 guests. I wore a simple navy dress. Nothing expensive. Nothing that would draw attention. I found a seat near the end of the long table and stayed quiet. Watched Lily move through the room the way she always did, like the space had been designed for her. Her groom James seemed kind, calm, the type of man who listened when people spoke. His father Richard Calloway sat at the head of the table. Silver-haired, sharp eyes. The kind of man who had seen enough of life to stop performing through it. Dinner was served at 7. That was when Lily stood up. She tapped her glass. The room quieted. She smiled her familiar smile. White, bright, aimed like a weapon. She gestured toward me. "Everyone, this is my stepsister Emily." Small pause. "Then she works as a nurse." Another pause. Perfectly timed. "Just a nurse." The table laughed. I picked up my water glass and took a slow sip. And across the table Richard Calloway stopped eating. He didn't say anything immediately. That was what made it uncomfortable. Most people had already moved on. Conversations restarted. Someone asked about the honeymoon. Lily was laughing again, the joke forgotten by everyone who had laughed at it. Everyone except Richard Calloway. He was looking at me the way you look at a word you know but cannot spell. Not rude. Not aggressive. Just quietly, persistently focused. I glanced at him once. Looked away. Reached for my bread roll. He was still looking. James noticed first. He leaned toward his father. "Dad, you all right?" Richard nodded. "Yes. Sorry." He picked up his fork. "Put it down again." "I know her from somewhere," he said. Almost to himself. Lily heard that. She laughed lightly. "Oh please. Emily's not exactly someone you'd remember." Richard didn't laugh. He looked at me again. His eyes moved the way eyes move when memory is working, not quite seeing the present, looking for something behind it. "Excuse me," he said politely. He turned toward me directly. "What hospital do you work at?" The table quieted just slightly. I looked at him steadily. "Mercy General," I said. Something shifted in his face. Not recognition yet, but close. The band took a short break 20 minutes later. Guests returned to their seats. Richard came back to the table and sat down. This time something was different. The uncertainty in his face was gone. He looked at me with the steady eyes of a man who had finally found what he was searching for. He leaned forward. "November 14th, he said quietly. 2021. My breath caught. There was a storm. Roads were blocked across the city. I was brought into Mercy General after a car accident. Internal bleeding. My blood pressure dropped to 70/40. The table had gone still. James stared at his father. "Dad." Richard held up one hand. He kept his eyes on me. The trauma team was stuck in traffic for nearly 4 hours. There was one nurse on that ward who didn't leave my side. He looked at me directly. "That was you." I didn't speak. He turned to James. His voice steady but filled with something that had waited 3 years to be said out loud. She monitored my vitals every 15 minutes. She kept talking to me, asking questions, telling stories, keeping me conscious. When my pressure dropped at the 3-hour mark, she made a call the attending later said was the reason I didn't go into cardiac arrest. The room was completely silent. Not a glass moved. He looked back at me. I asked about the nurse afterward. They said her name was Emily. I never forgot it. I just never had a face to put with it. Until tonight. His voice dropped. If you had walked away even once, I would not be sitting here watching my son get married. James stood up slowly. I heard Lily go very quiet. The kind of quiet that has no recovery. James walked around the table toward me. Extended his hand. Thank you, he said. Simple. Direct. I shook his hand. I was just doing my job, I told him. Richard shook his head. Oh. You stayed when you didn't have to. That is not a job. That is a choice. The table was quiet. I noticed people looking at Lily now. Not with cruelty. With the discomfort of people who had laughed at something they wished they hadn't. One older woman set down her glass and looked away from Lily. Lily sat completely still. Her earlier confidence, the smile, the timing, the performance of it, had left her face. She was looking at the tablecloth. I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt tired. Tired in the way you feel when something has finally been seen that should have been seen long ago. Richard spoke one more time. He looked directly at Lily. He said just a nurse. He let that sit for a moment. There's no just about any of it. The reception continued. Music started again. Life moved on the way it always does after moments too large for a room. Something had changed. People who had barely noticed me now nodded when I caught their eye. A cousin of James asked about my work. Genuinely. The way people ask when they want to know. I stayed another hour. Then left. Lily didn't say goodbye. I didn't expect her to. On the drive home I thought about November 14, 2021. The storm. The empty ward. For hours talking to a man I didn't know, just to keep him present. Never remarkable to me. Tuesday night shift. My job. But here is what 11 years teaches you. The moments that change everything rarely announce themselves. They arrive quietly. In ordinary nights. In rooms that smell like antiseptic and fluorescent light. You do the work anyway. Not because anyone is watching. Not because anyone will remember. But because the person in front of you is still breathing. And that has always been enough. If you have ever been told your work is small, hear me. Small is what people say when they cannot measure what you do. It does not make it less.